Association's meeting. Cool. Thanks. A couple of things to remember is, beginning phase, kind of that, try and keep yourselves muted while the presentations are going. If you got questions, you can put them in the chat. You can also raise your hand. And one of those things, I think that's listed in the participants actually. And then the big thing is we're recording this. So if you don't want to be part of the recording, change your name, I guess, and turn your video off because your name will show. Okay, next. Okay, that was I guess we ought to put that one first from now on. So we got actually quite a few nice items for tonight we want to talk about. And, the first one is hot topics. And I think I'd go through that quick. If anybody's got something that they just, think that we want to hear and get off something new, let me know. And in fact, if somebody's got some good ideas about what happened with that climate, health, and other bill that got passed by the Senate and the House is going to work on. Sounds like that's got a lot of EV credits, but it's got also a lot of stipulations on and who gets those credits. So I haven't actually read through it. Peter, I don't know. Do you know much about that or?
A little bit. I have not read it either, but I've read summaries. It sounds like if it passes, then the $7,500 tax credit's going to get restored to Toyota and GM and Tesla because there's not a limit on it anymore. I think there's a sunset date. I don't know the precise year. The thing that gets a little tricky though is there's income limits. $150,000 single, $300,000 married filing jointly. So if you earn more than that, you won't be eligible for the credit. There's also a limit on the price of the vehicle, and I'm trying to remember what the numbers are. I think it's $55K for sedans and 75 for SUVs.
I think it's 80 for SUVs.
80. Okay. Yeah. And so of course that means if the price of the car, and again, I don't know if that's base price or if that's actual out the door price, but those are the limits. So that will constrain a little bit. There's also credits for $4,000 for used vehicles, but there's a more stringent cap on income for that because it's basically for lower income disadvantaged communities to help them get into EVs. And that's, did I say what it was? I think it's $4,000 what the credit is. And then there is also, let's see, there was one other thing I was gonna mention, and now it just escaped my mind. But oh yeah, now I remember. There's other limits based on sourcing, and so if the battery comes from, and again, I don't know the exact details, but something along the lines of if it comes from a country that's on this list that we don't like, you're not eligible for the credit. And then it gets even more stringent in a couple of years where even if the materials that are used to make the battery come from these countries, then the credits, you're not eligible for credits. So it's and that, and in some ways it makes sense because what the idea is they're trying to encourage mining within the U.S., North America, and then battery manufacturing within North America. So, I mean, its intention is good. I don't know. I guess I'm assuming it's going to work. But then again, the credit's only the credit applies to the buyer, not the manufacturer. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's all I know.
Okay, that's pretty good. I'm glad you had that good of a hold on it because it seemed to change all the time. So,
yeah, hopefully it's not going to change because if the House changes it, then it has to go back to the Senate. And, it's a 50-50 split right now. If it changes too much, it might not pass back when it goes back to the Senate. So hopefully nobody's going to try to fiddle with it, and they'll just say, let's pass it as it is and be done with it, not take a risk.
I think at this point.
And by the way, I think I heard that the House is supposed to come back from recess near the end of August and vote on it. So that's when it should clear.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think the House is going to like go, we're lucky to get this. Let's just let it pass and take our rewards and fix other stuff later.
Yeah. Now I know we were talking about credits and EVs, but there's a lot of crap in there too. But it's if you don't want to know how the sausage is made, don't go to the factory. It's kind of like you got to have all this other gobbledygook in there just to get it passed. And so, it's kind of the price of passage, I guess, is the way I look at it. Even though I don't like it, it's like, well, I like the rest of it.
Yeah. So maybe we'll tune into the SAC EV meeting in September, and you guys will know what the final score is by then.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. Yeah, we should, because it'll be September. Yeah. So, we will know if it made it out of the House or if they started fiddling with it. We'll know that for sure.
Hope not. Okay. Katrina, why don't you go to the next slide? And I'll do the introduction of the topics. Okay, good. We'll go to the first one. Actually, I'll tell you, there's I gotta turn my phone off. There's a number of nice topics we have now. We're going to start out with the National Drive Electric Week, but we also have Valley Clean Energy talking about their new incentive program for EVs. So Peter kind of ties right into that. They've got a great new program coming out. And then both Ash and Katrina went on some nice trips this summer. One is to talk about heavy duty trucks. And then Katrina is going to tell us like what she did on her summer vacation. It sounds like it was a lot more fun than mine. So, okay. National Drive Electric Week. So I put in a placeholder right now for, actually I didn't put it in. I actually, submitted it for a electric vehicle showcase on September 25th. It's Sunday, September 25th. So we've got the pavilion at the farmer's market. I forget what park that is. What is that? Downtown Park? Remind me if you do.
Just Central Park, I think.
Central Park, I think you're right, Central Park. So that's reserved. We're still, Chris Granger, who's actually just getting back from her one-week camping trip, put in the permit with the city. So we're still waiting for the city to get back to us. So we can actually make it a big hoop-de-doo. So we're going to get as many cars as we can. We actually got quite a few people bringing cars, and a lot of them are on this discussion and or Zoom tonight. And then the next thing we're going to do, and in fact, I'll do this after this meeting, send out a kind of a plea for volunteers to help us with. There's set down, there's set up, there's takedown, and for those, showing their cars, that'd be great, because I think that's where the public loves to hear stuff. There's probably we're going to need some help in promotions. And that's more like making sure we've covered everything. And we did this last year, but I think this time we'd like to get Davis Enterprise. We'll get SAC EV to help us out with their lists. And then we'll also go through some of these like community groups like next door. And then on there, I've got the list, the link, to Drive Electric Week, which is sponsored by Plug-in America. Excuse me. So if you want to write that thing down and go right to it, if you haven't, either you can register as a volunteer, you can register as a participant, bring in your car, and you can register as you're going to show up. So go ahead and give that a try. So we've got like a little small inner working group that's working on about 5 of us. And once Chris gets back too, we're going to start contacting some of the dealerships, and hopefully we're going to get a ride and drive going. and we'll see how that works in September. And as Chris mentioned to me, the hardest part of the ride and drive is actually the dealers having the cars on site. And in this year of limited EVs, we can plan as much as we want, and they'll go, yeah, sorry, I sold it yesterday. We might be out of luck, but at least the rest of the thing is going to go on. We're going to try and get an electric bus that, you know, the UC Davis Unitrans runs. Chris wants to see if we can get bus rides on the bus. That'd be good. And e-bikes, we're going to try and get some e-bikes there. So I think this is going to be a good way to kick it off. Any questions? If you don't, expect to see some emails from DEVA here in the next week or so. A couple of them asking you to help out with stuff. And I'll send out notes for more people bringing their cars, though I think of the people on here right now, I've got quite a few. So with that, let's go to the next one, the next item. And so Sarah Huffman from Valley Clean Energy is going to sit down and give us a nice discussion of their new EV, electric vehicle rebate program, which is now funded, ready to go. It just needs, I guess, well, Sarah's going to tell us about it. I think it just needs final touches here, and hopefully in September it's live. But it sounds pretty interesting. So Sarah, if you want to take it away.
All right, thanks, Richard. Share my screen here. All righty, can everyone see that new presentation?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Okay, so yes, again, my name is Sarah Huffman, and I'll be presenting on our new electric vehicle rebate program. There we go. All right, so if you're not familiar with Valley Clean Energy and who we are, just a quick little refresher here. So Valley Clean Energy Alliance, or VCE, so we provide electricity services to Woodland, Winters, Davis, and unincorporated YOLO. We are a not-for-profit, so any revenues that we make go directly back into our community, and that ties right into the benefits of what we're really trying to provide our local area or our territory. So you have choice in who you get your electricity from, whether it's PG&E or Valley Clean Energy. You have cleaner energy options that are available to you. You have choice in what your renewable energy content is and the power that you buy, whether it's standard or if you want to contact us, call us, hop on our website and opt up to 100% renewable energy. That's right at your fingertips. You have local program control. So whether that's showing up to our community advisory committee or board meetings, coming and talking to us and letting us know what do you really want to see in the community and what's important. And then just like I said before, we're putting those revenues right back into the community. And so part of that is the programs. And the programs we have active right now, we've got a heat pump pilot, so that's education outreach to contractors mainly, but also to customers. And then we have the SACOG grant, so we're trying to sort of beef up the local electric vehicle charging infrastructure that's right now located at local governments. We have AgFit, so we are trying to automate and then design dynamic prices for our agricultural customers so that they can start basically how the energy is working on the market, and then they should start changing how they use energy to better benefit the grid and their wallet at the same time. And then we have electric vehicle rebates, which is why we're here today. All right, so our electric vehicle rebate program is a pilot. So it's going to be a phased pilot. We're in phase 1 right now, so things are probably hopefully change for the better come next year. But really what we tried to do is we wanted to stack your savings. We want to try to provide the customer with as much savings as possible. So we designed our rebate to sort of work with existing rebates and incentives that are out there right now. So a couple of those stacks you can see. So if you are low income qualified, if best case scenario, you apply for everything that's easily available and out there right now, you can get $14,250, so pretty sizable amount. And then for your sort of standard applicant, anyone that's sort of below that high income cap is going to be qualified for, the Valley Clean Energy rebate, the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, and then the California Clean Fuels Reward. So that adds you up to about a little over $5 grand. Okay, so a little more about our program design. So again, we really wanted to align with the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, and that, there's a few sort of technical aspects about how we function and our staff on hand, but it was really about trying to make the application process as simple as possible for customers as well. So, ideally, after a customer has been approved for the Clean Vehicle Rebate project and received funds from them, within 3 months after that, they would start the application process with Valley Clean Energy. So a couple of our program attributes, we were providing rebates from $2,000 to $4,000. So for a low income qualified applicants, that would be that $4 grand for a battery electric or for a hybrid. So there's no differentiation from whether or not which type of electric vehicle you want to buy. So again, for standard applicants, if you want to buy a hybrid, it's going to start at $2,000. If you're going for a battery electric vehicle, it's going to be $2,500. And we wanted to design it with the equity aspect in mind. So our applicants that qualify as low income will get priority. So we're trying to process our applications first, and then make sure that their funds, our sort of funding budget, is available to them. And then, simple application process. So, few documents submitted, very easy questionnaire to fill out, and then you're right on your way. So not a lengthy process. So let's go into the pathway to your new EV. So you're starting off your EV journey. And of course, as you always hear, you want to find the right car for you. So we have web pages that are available. I went over that in my last presentation. But you can explore the makes, the models, different aspects about what you need in a vehicle, and you can filter that out, and you can find that resource linked above. You also want to visit, of course, the CVRP project's website and find out if that electric vehicle is available for their rebates. It's an important part of it too. So they have an eligible vehicle list. All right, so you have your vehicle in mind and you want to prepare for your new EV. So a tip is to get pre-qualified for a car loan before heading to a dealer. And so financing and sort of your car loan information is something that we're trying to build up. We know that's important for customers, a really important step for trying to afford an EV. So we're beefing up that aspect of our website, working on that personally. So while it's not on there right now, you can definitely expect it on the future. And also hoping to bring those aspects to the National Drive Electric Week as well. So working on that. So let's do a scenario here. Let's say you looked at the makes and models and you're like, all right, Chevrolet Bolt sounds good for me. It's one of the most popular electric vehicles right now. So let's say you make the median household income in Yolo County. So, about 73 grand a year. You live in a two-person household, you have a fair FICO credit score, which is about the average for California. So taking all those things into account, we can go over here. So this is a little spreadsheet that I jotted up for the Chevrolet Bolt. So right out the door, you're going to qualify for the Clean California Fuel Reward. So that's at $750, which will be taken off right at purchase. And this is also sort of assuming that you're going, with the MSRP, so not paying a dime over sort of what the suggested retail price. So because of the kind of fair FICO score, we do have a pretty high interest rate that I made as an assumption. With these financing options that we'll be providing, hopefully we can bring this down quite a bit, which, to 5%, 3%. But right now, it's kind of assuming with the fair, it would be 14%. And that your loan is at 4 years. So your total payment for your vehicle, about $35,000, interest payment over $11,000. So 3 to 6 months later, because you have to sort of apply for these rebates after you purchase your vehicle. So this is, you've applied to and been approved by the CVRP. So you've received that rebate. And then you will have applied to the Valley Clean Energy rebate. So that rebate process is you just provide proof that you've received funds from the CVRP. A couple of ways is, showing us your CVRP portal, the email that the CVRP provides you, just saying, this is the make and model you bought of your vehicle, and this is sort of where the address to where it's been registered, and the amount of funds you received, or it can be a picture of your check as well. So there is a couple different options. We're still sort of refining that process. And then provide proof that you received electricity from service and from Valley Clean Energy. So that's probably, we're just going to compare the address that you provided and make sure it's in our database as one of the customers. So your name doesn't actually have to be on the bill. So we want to sort of open that up to, if you're just in a household and somebody else's name is on the bill, you can qualify for a rebate. Okay, so you've got the CVRP in hand. That'll be the 2,000. You received a Valley Clean Energy rebate, which is another 2,500. So your total rebate amount is this $4,500 right here. And this takes into account a couple of assumptions. You receive those rebates and you put it right in as a lump sum to help pay off your vehicle. So if you do that, you're also going to save, it's an estimate about $2,000 in interest payments as well, because you're paying off your vehicle before that 4 years. And total payment for that car after 4 years is going to be just under $30,000. And we've got one more scenario. So, all right, so let's say I said along comes baby. Now you don't have a 2-person household, now you have a 3-person household. Same criteria, same income, same credit score. We're going to jump down to the 6 months here, and this is where you'll really see the difference. So you're going to receive the CVRP of $2,000, but the CVRP also has an adder for being low income qualifying. So that'll give you another $2,500, and now you're receiving from Valley Clean Energy the $4,000 rebate. So totaling you rebates to $8,500. And then you can see down at the bottom, you're using all of that to go towards your vehicle. You'll save over $3,000 in interest, and then you're shooting down to even less than the MSRP in total payments of $23,000. So now we're trying to make it as feasible as possible for customers, and that's the real goal right now. All right, so where we are and the next steps, just as Richard was getting to, we've been approved, we've got the budget, we know customers are interested. What we're doing is finalizing the application process. So just, the actual boxes you'll be checking and the names you'll be plotting in, as well as our terms and conditions. So those are sort of the two sheets we're working on right now. The launch date, we're shooting for late August. So it's coming up fast, or early September, sort of at, worst case scenario if we need more time for something. And if you want to stay up to date on what we're doing, always check the website, definitely recommend that. And of course, we have our newsletter as well. So that is a great thing to sign up to if you want to keep track of Valley Clean Energy. And sorry about that, must have timed out. So feel free to contact myself or Rebecca, and you can get to us at it's customer service, info@Valley Clean Energy, or you can call our customer service line anytime from Monday through Friday and during the weekday to get some more information on these programs we'll be providing. All right, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, we can definitely take some questions.
Definitely, I think people are going to have questions. Can I just ask you, Sarah? So is this stuff going to be on your website? Because I really like those scenarios you put out there. So.
Maybe not the number crunching that I did, but we'll be designing. Right now we have those EV pages that really aren't sort of personalized for our specific rebate. So we will be designing a rebate page just specifically that goes over the application process and what we're providing.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do though. Your slides are going to be available to us, so we'll post them to our page. Yeah. Though I think your page would get more books. Okay.
Sierra, I had a question. Are there any incentives for used cars?
Yes, there are. Actually, not. I believe they are grant programs, so you'll be applying to them before you purchase an electric vehicle. And while they can stack with what Valley Clean Energy is providing, right now I believe they are either waitlisted or out of funds. The Drive Clean rebate program. I'm sorry, I'll have to look up the acronyms, but there is 2 of them right now that are both waitlisted and are out of funds for the moment.
Are you doing infrastructure rebates too, or is that kind of in the pipelines, or is it just vehicle?
Right now, just vehicle. We were doing it for the sort of local governments, the SACOG grant that I mentioned before, but not fully available to customers yet.
So if you've got questions, go ahead and bring them up now.
I had a question. What happens if you don't get a CVRP rebate because you've already used it up?
Already used it up. You mean like
You don't get unlimited CVRP rebates.
Oh, like you've applied for it for a different vehicle and that you can't apply for it again?
Exactly.
Got you. You know, that is a great point. So right now we have a loose, that'll be something I have to talk to Rebecca about, because right now we have a loose date that you should apply for Valley Clean Energy's rebate after, within 3 months after receiving funds from the CVRP. So I don't think, that you could, there may be a chance that time frame is not so strict to where it could apply to that vehicle that you purchased with the CVRP, but that, at this time, it probably would not qualify for what we have.
Yeah, I think, this is Peter, I think it's one, but it's one per person, right? So if you're married, you can use 2. You get 2. Your wife gets 1 or your spouse gets 1 and you get 1.
But they need to have a driver's license.
Yes, well, I'm hoping that your spouse is old enough to have a driver's license. This is not Kentucky, I'm sorry. But yeah, no, you're right. But actually it's within the family though, right? So I mean, if you have a child that's old enough to drive, they could register the car in their name and you get another one. So there are limits, but there are ways to play the game. So I think you can still make it work, but you have to be careful, because you don't want to register the car in your name if you've already used your rebate, because then you won't get a second one.
And you bring up a good point. I'll just mention that about Valley Clean Energy's rebate. So I believe it is 1 per household, 1 per year. So, just a good thing when thinking about going forward too, is it will just be one per household.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fair, because remember, if most of this is for equity purposes and disadvantaged communities, they're probably not going to buy more than 1 car a year anyway, right?
So Sierra, this is Richard. I'd add another thing to one of your scenarios too, was that when my daughter got her 2018 Chevrolet Volt with a V, she got her loan. She got her loan through the Golden One Credit Union. I don't know how other credit unions are, but they allowed, I think it was up to 6 months to reset the baseline for her loan. So she bought it. She got the loan to pay for it, put some money down for it, and then she put in her rebates for her, CVRP. She got that in. She was going to UC Merced, so San Joaquin Valley Air District had a $3,000 rebate, which is the reason she went for it. So she got another $3,000. So and she got both of those. So what was that? That was about $5,500, I think, that she got from those. Oh, and then she had PG&E, and at that time they had an $800 rebate. So she took all that money, and like 5 months later, she basically lowered her whole baseline, so her whole payment dropped as well. So, so that would be nice. But in your case, you just took it and paid it, used it to pay off to reduce the balance, I guess. So.
Yeah, And that's a great point. You can either put it as a lump sum, or you can do that, just as you said, Richard, they call it like recasting. So you take it right off your principal, and then they sort of reformulate what your monthly payments were like off of that. And so they'll be lower monthly payments and lower interest.
Right. Yeah. And I think for people, she also lived in a house with 2 other roommates, and they were all low income. I mean, they all were students with summer jobs. All she had to do was ask the other 2 people to show me your income tax so you can get the low income. And, you know, I was going to say one of them didn't want to do it, and they had to get all 3 of them to do it. And she didn't want to do it, which is kind of ridiculous. All I had to do was send something easy. But so she just like, I'll go on that. But she missed the low income part. But it was a pretty simple thing they had to do. It was for, I forget who gave that to her. Was that CVRP, I think, that did it. Okay. Any other questions from anybody? So Sierra, you think this is going to go live sometime? Well, I guess between sometime in August till September.
Yep, we've got either the next 2 weeks or the next 4 weeks. So
Okay.
looking at that time frame.
Yeah. This is a real boost. That'd be pretty nice. Okay.
Right.
Thanks, Sierra.
Thank you.
And if I can ask you too, if you don't mind, send us your slides.
Yes, absolutely.
Love it.
I'll send them.
Yeah. I always like to get the most up-to-date things because some of the incentives are changing so fast. I was having one of our EV events. Somebody asked me what are the incentives, and I had to say, I'll get back to you. I had to go look them up again. Okay. So Katrina, why don't you pop up in fact, you know what? I don't think you have, let's let Ash throw up his slides itself. So Ash Dalal from DEVA, that's not his main job, but DEVA didn't pay DEVA, is going to talk to us about the conference he went to this summer and EVs for long haul transportation. So Ash, take it away.
Cool, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Sierra. That's cool that you guys are offering some incentives. Hopefully one of these days I can afford a new car, but we'll see. But anyway, yeah, so, I had a great opportunity, not necessarily a vacation, but, going to a lot of conferences and stuff to kind of outline what's new in the industry, really on the infrastructure and on the truck side. And so as we kind of migrate into this new world of completely electrifying, we now are entering the new markets for trucks. So hopefully this will kind of outline what's new in that realm and what some of the challenges we see coming ahead. So yeah, we'll talk about kind of why EV trucks, and then we'll talk about what vehicles are on the market currently, and then what challenges we're up against, and we'll end it up with some Q&A. But ultimately, it's the same reason why we're migrating towards, EVs for passenger vehicles. This whole decarbonization effort, applies to the majority of the vehicles on the road, which you can see is about 45% of passenger vehicles. But there's still that 29% that we see, huffing and puffing on the freeways every day from the ports, from cross-country locations, and from single destinations to wherever in the U.S., carrying, pretty valuable transport or, cargo and stuff for everybody. So that market, is also under the same scrutiny. But, as we all know, the technology's matured to a point where they just can't meet some of these technical requirements, for emissions and fuel consumption, because theoretically, you're still running, 30%, of that fuel energy is actually being used into moving the vehicle. So the rest of it is all waste. So as much as we've spent over the last 60, 70 years refining that, we're still not there. And the only real way to accomplish these requirements is to electrify. So that's kind of the main driver with all of this. So if we kind of look at what we're traditionally used to, with the different classifications of vehicles, class 1, 2, and 3 are commonly what we see more day to day from, the passenger vehicles like the new F-150 Lightning, all the way to some of the last mile delivery trucks that, you know, drop off your FedEx packages or your Amazon packages. And those are kind of lumped up together in these three classes. But we then go into the class 4, 5, and 6 vehicles, which we also now have variants for. And those are now considered, you know, a little bit more popular because you now have mass integration from, you know, fleets like FedEx and UPS and Pepsi and all sorts of cool delivery companies out that are really trying to get into the space. And so there's companies that are converting old vehicles into this, including mine, and also ones that are producing them from scratch, like BrightDrop, which is the example shown here. And so you can kind of lump these up into the, you know, the 4, 5, and 6 category, and they all have their same corresponding weight restrictions on them, so how much cargo they can really carry. But, you know, as we all know, you know, the more cargo you carry, the less range you have. And so that's kind of the dilemma, is how much battery do these things really need, you know, and how far can you get once everything's fully loaded? So again, another technical challenge that this industry is up against. But, you know, as we look further into that market, we also introduced the class 6, 7, and 8 vehicles, which we're now electrifying as well. So if we consider these smaller variants, these are now the swimming pools of the battery world, where these are kind of drops in the bucket in terms of battery capacity. And this applies to anything from transit vehicles for buses, where we now have, you know, electric buses on the ground in various, you know, counties and such. And we also now have these class 8 big rigs and class 6 and 7 trucks as well too, which we'll talk about in just a second here. But here's a couple of examples, you know, what we kind of see on the market right now. So on the top, we've all seen and heard the news about the Tesla semi-truck, very popular. I think it's been in the works since 2017, you know, but now kind of maturing as competition's growing. So alongside that, we have the Nikola, you know, which is also another EV truck that's on the market coming out fairly soon. And also accompanying that is a fuel cell version to kind of accommodate, you know, whether or not there's going to be, you know, additional charging infrastructure. If there's any concerns of that, at least there's hydrogen fuel cell research and products available too in this market that are coming up. One of the cool kind of variants that's coming up in the mix that we might see locally is Zeus. They are producing a class 6 and class 7 all electric variant that SMUD was actually the first recipient for, and they have 5 vehicles coming in. And I'm going to be working with them on some of their data, you know, acquisition and seeing how it can really be utilized in their fleet better. But they're one of the first end users of these products that can also be configured, you know, like a traditional truck in this class can do, which is cargo hauling or even some auxiliary functions that the utility market uses. If we look at some of the other variants like the BrightDrop, like I talked about for the kind of the class 3, class 4, these are simple, you know, cargo box type trucks, but they also have, you know, large battery packs to support not only the cargo, but to help them go around 150 to 200 miles on a day. You kind of sort of replicating what they normally do in a regular day in terms of drop off and deliveries and such. So if you kind of look at, you know, the scale of things, you know, we look at the Nissan Leaf, you know, roughly about 40 to 60 kilowatt hours. We then bump up into the Teslas, you know, with the 100 kilowatts hour. And these are all energy units. So kilowatt hours is what we term for, you know, a unit of energy. So, you know, the Tesla Model X, you know, right up there around 100. You know, then we now introduce some of the new trucks on the market, like the Rivians and the Ford F-150 Lightnings, and those are averaging around 110 to about 140 kilowatt hours. And so again, very dense batteries that can not only give you the range when unloaded, but also provide some assistance when you are towing or carrying heavy loads, which, you know, may drastically reduce that range, but still give you that functionality of a truck that we're all looking for. If we then look into some of the variants like the BrightDrops are now entering kind of the 150 to 200 kilowatt hour range, along with the class 6 and class 7 about 175, about 210 kilowatt hours. And so again, large batteries, that's 4 Nissan Leafs tied up into just one car right there. But now that we're looking into these big class 8 trucks, kind of the biggest things on the road right now, we're now in the 600 kilowatt to 1 megawatt of battery power. So that's a lot. I can't do my math real quick, but that's a lot of Leafs, you know, that's tied up in one of these trucks. And so what we're kind of coming across now are these challenges of, so how do we charge them? You know, we already have a problem with the current inventory of passenger vehicles on the market. here's such an example of, you know, what SMUD has in their territory. And we have about 50,000 residential transformers, but as vehicles are growing in terms of inventory and sales, you know, we now have more and more adapters of this technology where now these transformers are becoming overloaded. So out of 150 transformers on average, 4 or more of those are basically overloaded. And, you know, so out of that average, you know, we have quite a bit within this current infrastructure that we're in right now that constantly needs revisions, constantly needs upkeep and replacement to adapt to these new charge, you know, requirements and demands that are now placed on these vehicles or on the grid. So, you know, what does that mean? That means now there's going to be far more charge optimization strategies to say, okay, well, let's say we're in a parking lot at peak hours where the AC's on in the building, you know, all the lights are on and such, but there's only so much available power. We now have to throttle how much charge is going into these vehicles. So keep in mind that we now have to accommodate all these people that are charging on this on some of these grid networks now. And so that means we're just going to have to utilize that power as best as possible through software and through other controls and really kind of optimize, you know, what is that time of use, the TOU variable there, you know, when is exactly that frame or where is that window and how can we optimize that to make sure that we don't overload the transformers. But, you know, as we're introducing these megawatt charging solutions, we also now are chasing, you know, the technology with updating our standards. The funny, you know, kind of, you know, theme around some of these discussions are, you know, there's so many standards, pick one. Well, you know, in this case, you know, we already have J1772, which is our common little connector that we plug into our regular EV cars, but now we're introducing additional, you know, charge requirements and also charge specifications. And for instance, the J3271, which is what we call the MCS, megawatt charging system, and that's going to be kind of focusing on these class 6 to class 8 trucks. We also have the CCS, you know, which again is the combined charge system that has the DC fast charging and the regular AC that we're used to too. And so like the Chevy Bolt has this, we'll show a little picture of it in a bit here, but the Chevy Bolt is a perfect example where you can have both J1772 from your house or from a level 2 EVSE, and you can also utilize some DC fast charging units that are in parking lots like in Walmart or Target and such. So if you kind of look at this, you know, from a charge standpoint now, that same kind of scale applies where, you know, the normal passenger vehicle roughly between 7.2 to 19 kilowatts of charge power. But now we're entering these larger battery dense vehicles like the Rivians and the Bright Drops and Zeus chassis and such, which now require 150 kilowatts, almost 10 times what you would expect from a Leaf. And to now power these, you know, so as these vehicles are being utilized in the fleet, they now have kind of a strategy around them to say, okay, well, if we're going to be operating for 8 hours, we now have to charge them for 8 hours to get that same utility the next day. And when that charge happens, how that's going to be optimized, again, is part of this new strategy. But multiply that now by a factor of 4, and now we have megawatt charging because now we're kind of under the constraint of time. If you're a long haul driver and you're trying to go from one position to the next, you have to truncate that time like you would filling up at a gas station. So we're now trying to induce all this charge quickly. So in a matter of 10 minutes to an hour or so, you basically need enough range to move on to the next charge station. And that's what causes this industry to be a little bit more kind of cautious, because that's a lot of power quickly, which again taxes the battery of the vehicle, the infrastructure that's charging it, as well as the hardware that's in the middle of that to take that wall charge into the vehicle. So if we kind of look at the scale of things, you know, let's take a look at 50 passenger vehicles. That's about 360 kilowatts. And so if you look at all those nice charger infrastructures that are in parking lots like the Tesla ones you see, you know, those things are pretty much filled up all the time, right? So if you have 50 of those, average about 360 kilowatts. If we now scale that to 50 medium duty trucks like those Zeus chassis, now if we see fleets with more than 10, 20, sometimes 50 trucks, that bumps that up to 750 kilowatts. And again, now you have to optimize this vehicle to now either change the way you're using it in the fleet, how many trucks you actually have in your fleet to maybe compensate for different shifts, you know, so there's a lot of thought around how do we get this technology that doesn't necessarily replenish its energy as quickly as a traditional vehicle does. You know, when we fill up a big truck like this, 5-10 minutes max, but now we're talking hours. So that has to be compensated for in the kind of work schedule. But you take a look at now what that compares to in a building. The Transamerica building pulls about 2 megawatts of power. That's about, you know, 2/3 of what you'd expect from 50 transit buses. Now take that into a community like San Francisco or Seattle, where you have, you know, mass transit networks already available that are trying to electrify. Now you have to power those trucks and buses, you know, and here's sort of an example of how much power 50 transit buses will take. Scale that up again, now 3 times to the Class 8 trucks. And now we all know that we see more than 50 of these things probably per day, and there's fleets that have more than 50 of these trucks. And so if you have to charge these things up as frequently as you need to, you compare that to what the Empire State Building pulls of 9 megawatts, that's probably enough to charge about 50, you know, Class 8 trucks. And so again, kind of giving you kind of a frame of reference here of how much power is actually required to charge these things. It's a lot. So kind of wrap things up, this is what we're kind of expecting now with some of these new charging strategies. And so what we're commonly used to with this J1772 is, you know, what we've grown up with over the last few years, but now that's progressing into the CCS, the combined charge system, which includes the 1772 and potentially DC fast charging in the middle here. And then we have the Tesla variants, of course. But, you know, in between, we also still have some remaining CHAdeMO fast charging from the old Nissan Leafs and things. But now if we take that to the megawatt charging solution or system, I'm sorry, you know, we now scale that to now accommodate that high amount of power. So look at the scale of that size of connector in that guy's hand here. It's fairly large. And so I'd say it's probably the size of a fire extinguisher. So imagine disconnecting and reconnecting that, you know, and how much heat is dissipated, and a lot of the physics behind it are now still being assessed and tested and sort of quantified, you know, in these new standards. So while we're still chasing the technology, and as batteries are getting more dense, trucks are becoming more dense to accommodate more load, more range, the connectors on these things are also getting upsized to accommodate these new charging requirements here for these bigger trucks. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell. Hopefully wasn't too technical there, but if there's any questions and stuff, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Ash, I understand that Tesla has installed some chargers at the, I think it's a Frito-Lay plant in Modesto, and to accommodate their semis. And do you know what kind of a connector they're using?
Yeah, they're migrating into the MCS world too. They kind of have their own way of doing things. I haven't quite seen what they're doing differently, but I'm sure they're trying to be persuaded into this MCS connector to kind of commonalize versus what they're normally doing for their passenger vehicles. It would be sort of a bad business case for vehicles like that to have an additional constraint of not only finding a charger, but also finding a charger that has the right connector. So I think from a business standpoint, it probably wouldn't make more sense, but honestly, I don't know exactly what they're doing there, but I can't imagine it being anything different from what we already know and what we already have.
I also wonder about, you know, trucks that, even semis that go out and basically they come back the same day, you know, to the warehouse or whatever. You know, are they going to need these megawatt chargers, or, you know, it's a different kind of business model for them.
It is, yeah, and that's exactly the problem. Is you have a lot of these vehicles coming in at the same time, you know, so how do you distribute that small amount of available power that's available on the current network, and how do you get that power into these vehicles and still start the next day with a fully charged pack? So constantly, you know, there's some rework of the infrastructure and how to really position these vehicles and charging stations. And so that's kind of the struggle right now is, how do we do this all? How do we make this happen? But how do we bring in this technology and make it work for these folks that are now forced, you know, to get into this space because of these mandates, because of these issues, and also to kind of control some of these costs. We've all seen fuel costs go up and down lately. And imagine that on the fleet side, multiplying that by X amount of trucks times X amount of gallons. That's quite a bit of additional cost that they are trying to level, with this new technology too. So the bulk investment, of this technology will easily be, saving money in the long haul, but there's still the costs around it of developing the infrastructure, getting all these charging, places intact, but also potentially buying more vehicles to make up for what they normally can't do, which is charge, or fill in the vehicle. Yeah, Robert and Barbara, I think you had a question there.
Yes. Wouldn't it be easier to have hydrogen fuel cell trucks?
Yeah, and that's exactly what is some of the strategy right now. If you notice along Highway 50, the California Fuel Cell Partnership Group, they're still pursuing a lot of this technology. Cummins is still in the map, for fuel cells. A lot of folks are still looking into that still as a potential energy source, because it works pretty well, I think, in this market because of these charging issues. But now we're also faced with the problem of how do we develop the hydrogen filling infrastructure now too. So do we need to have hydrogen filling stations replacing gasoline stations alongside electric vehicle charging stations? So same dilemma, but we no longer have to worry about, the infrastructure, of the utilities, but now we have to develop an infrastructure for the pipelining and for the actual distribution of that energy. So yeah, so I think hydrogen is a viable technology in this space. And whether or not who's going to win, I guess is the question here, but definitely a lot of value in that because of the fact that there are these constraints. One thing I didn't add in detail is, the utilities are 2 to 3 years out sometimes now to get these updates in place. And so it's almost like buying the latest and greatest laptop today. It's all awesome until it gets delivered, and next thing you know, it's outdated tomorrow. We're not at that point yet, but we're going to be seeing a lot more development, and that's why these standards are constantly evolving to adapt to a 600 megawatt or kilowatt hour truck. Then tomorrow it's a 700 kilowatt hour truck that needs to charge in half the time. So the constraints are getting more and more tight. The demand is getting more and more intense, but the infrastructure is still lagging behind, and that's just a lot of other issues with cost and supply chain and whatnot.
Too bad there aren't any easy answers.
Yeah. If there weren't any easy answers, I wouldn't have a job, right?
Well, in that case, we're glad there aren't any.
Right. Peter, you had a question there?
It was more of a comment.
Yeah.
Like if you're, because someone mentioned the trucks that basically start out in one place, drive, and then come back at home every night. And in that case, even if you had a megawatt hour battery, if you had 10 hours to charge that thing up, you'd only have to charge it 100 kilowatts. And,
Yeah,
and so then you could potentially for that megawatt charging, you basically could be charging 10 of your trucks. And if you had access, now again, this is a little, it's not cheap, but if you needed, you could charge 100 trucks at 100 kilowatt on one 12 kV feeder from a substation. So, I mean, those things are not cheap to put in place, but if you're close to the substation, that's basically telling you, if you're siting at a warehouse, you want to put it close to the main substation so you can run that feeder out quickly, because that can be done very quickly. If there's capacity in the substation, SMUD could run a feeder, very fast. They wouldn't have to wait for a bunch of studies to be done. So
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So
totally
there's
right.
Yeah. But the other thing I was going to say is, and it pains me to say it because I am president of SAC EV, but hydrogen for long haul class 8 trucks is not a bad thing. I mean, you have to remember that it's not as efficient. So that means that you have to have more generating capacity to create that hydrogen than you would if you were just going to throw electrons into a battery in a truck. but because you have the advantage of the fast fill time, maybe it's worth it. So.
Yep, I totally agree. So that's exactly why it's on the table, because it makes more sense in this market. But yeah, to your original point, that does require a lot more due diligence, and that's where a lot of startup companies and a lot of companies are migrating towards optimizing that charge strategy to say, yeah, if I've got 10 trucks at 1 megawatt hour worth of power of energy per truck, do I really need to charge them fully to 100% every single day? Probably not. So right. They're also trying to see, that communication between the truck or the car and the charger or the EVSE and the grid now has to happen. So you now have 3 people communicating to each other. How much power do I have? How much power can I deliver? And how much power I can accept? And what is really that balance there? Because multiply that by X amount of trucks in the fleet. So a big challenge, but like Sierra mentioned in her presentation, we also have this new emerging market in the farming side. So how do we get that much power to power this EV tractor that now has to plow through 400 acres of property? The crops aren't going to say, you're charging, okay, I'm going to stop growing. They don't do that. So there has to be that balance there too, but we now have to incorporate this infrastructure in remote areas and then also provide this charge optimization and kind of balance of what we can actually deliver and what we actually really need, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, agriculture is tricky because they're typically a long way from the substation. so then the power that can be delivered is a lot lower. So you have to figure out ways to be able to still charge it up. Yep.
Absolutely. Larry, you had a question there?
I don't know much about the technology, but is there anybody working on being able to exchange batteries quickly in vehicles?
Yeah, and that's also
shove them in at night and send the trucks off the next morning.
Yeah, that's also on the map. I think one of the challenges right now currently is just the supply chain, issue. With so much of our battery technology coming from overseas, we just don't have the inventory to successfully do that as of now. But that is one of the options. One of the other things that we also didn't talk about is on the infrastructure side is also putting those batteries in what we call microgrids. So in between the grid itself and your EVSE or your charger, now you have megawatt hour level energy in Connex boxes on these lots to help buffer, that distribution to say, okay, I have enough to supply these trucks with this reserve capacity that I can then charge in these off-peak hours to kind of balance that load on the transformer too. So we're not only seeing the potential for swaps, but we're also seeing that same technology stationary, in these kind of interim cases that we're now trying to introduce.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have a question?
I haven't seen anything on the chat there, but if there's any
Sounds like it was a great conference. But. So I'll just add one other. Which of these trucks do you think is going to hit the market first? I mean, some already have. The big mega trucks sounds like they take a lot of infrastructure upgrades, and I say this because there's a lot of local guys that have contacted us and said, gee, I need a delivery truck. It's not a humongous Amazon truck, but it's something I can deliver my goods to, people in my area and stuff. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I honestly don't know because there's just so many players in the field, I think right now that are trying to get into the space, but we're seeing a lot more activity from the normal players, the Freightliners, the Peterbilts, ones that have been traditionally producing these diesel trucks have now completely shifted into this world. And so they're trying to hit the market quickly because of this, kind of predicted demand that's coming up, but also the competition. They want to be, on the ground running quickly and before everybody else, because that marketability will attract more sales. So there's more of the business driver, but they're still constrained by the technology, unfortunately. And that's where they're trying to justify the cost side. When you're looking at deploying this technology, we've seen such a drastic reduction in energy costs for batteries, but now you scale that times the quantity that you really need for these trucks. On top of that, it's still sort of a business case to justify in some of these, for some of these OEs, because they don't know if it's, why would they put money towards something that may not sell? But even though they know that it's going to sell now, they're still trying to make that case with these kind of interim small quantity or small volume solutions as kind of proof of concept to see if it really works, to kind of get more data from. So they're kind of scratching the surface to check for feasibility, to check for cost, and also explore, do we need swappable batteries, or do we need to do something on the infrastructure side to support this? And so again, a lot more work involved there, but honestly, I don't know what's going to hit the market first, but you expect a lot of them at once.
Okay, thanks, Ash.
Absolutely.
So let's move to Katrina. Katrina's going to tell us what she did on her summer vacation. Like I said, it sounds like a lot of fun. So Katrina, if you're ready, pop up this.
Oh yeah, I'm totally ready. Hey y'all. When I share the screen, I cannot see what's coming next. So it's a big surprise to all of us. I put these slides together at 5:45, and that was 15 minutes before we started. So here we go. So kind of just start us out. So EVS stands for Electric Vehicle Symposium. It's an annual conference that kind of jumps between Europe, Asia, and the US, or North America. And so every year it's in a different place. This year in lovely 2022, it was in Norway. And because I got one of my papers accepted to present, my company paid for me to go abroad, which was incredibly fun. Next year it's actually in Sacramento, which is just a little closer than Norway. So I'm thinking that maybe other people locally may be able to check it out, because it was really fun. So I have to say what my paper was, because otherwise, like, what else would I be doing here? So I was talking about diesel fuel fired heaters that are installed in electric buses, actually, and kind of what the benefits and disadvantages of that is, and kind of like what the emissions associated with that look like. So these little heaters, these little suckers got me all the way to Norway, which was very fun and kind of silly. So that's what one looks like. This, I assume you can see the mouse. I don't know. This in this yellow bus, actually, that was on display, actually had one, and I had the guy like lift it up for me and take a look, and he's like, "You're the only one who I've ever heard of that cares about these little heaters." And I was like, "Thank you so much. I love these little heaters." Well, I don't, but like I love them. They're so fun. And that's what got me to Norway. So what can I say? So I'm happy to talk your ear off about buses. That's primarily what I do now. I work in the electric bus space. My background is in light duty electric vehicles, but now I've kind of shifted into the heavy duty space. So I'm happy to go down that rabbit hole with you if you want, but Ash just gave a fantastic presentation, more scientific than mine, about the heavy duty space. And so it's very fun to, know there's more dorks out there, which, we all are in a good way. So I was over there for about a week for the conference, and then about another week kind of just like being a tourist, because why not when you're in Europe? But I mean, I'm a dork, so I also saw a lot of transportation related things voluntarily and because of the conference. So I know Ash was talking about kind of this big megawatt charging port standard, and actually they announced it at EVS, so they were out with it. And so I got to like touch it and pick it up, and that thing's a beast. So like it's heavy, so good luck. And here's like a nice little water bottle size comparison. Because I work in buses, I do have to start with, some bus pictures. So the transit agency there is called Router, and their little hashtag is like their little logo. And so we scouted out one of their buses that was charging, which is incredibly fun. They used the pantograph charging here, which if you've seen a bus pantograph charge, they go kind of up and down to get just like, I think it's up to like 500 kilowatts of power, just like massive amounts of power. They're just sucking up off the grid, and it's so cool. But what's interesting about Europe is that the pantograph is actually, I think it's bottom up. So all the structure is kind of on the bus, but in the US, actually it's top down. So a lot of the infrastructure is just sitting up there, which is just a design choice, but it is something different compared to the US and Europe. And then this other yellow bus, they actually just had sitting at the conference, which is really cool because it's like a articulated electric bus, which is just like fantastic. But what's actually interesting is that these buses are by different brands that we actually don't get in the States because, well, there's a whole host of issues, but these are different different buses that we see, which is fun. This is a little car. These are just pictures, so you know, it's not anything scientific. Ash already covered that with great in-depth and very fun, but I just have some fun pictures. This is a little car, but he's got like a normal J1772 plug sticking out of his front, so like kind of a size comparison. He has no purpose, but he was just very cute. This is Xpeng's weird little hovercraft thing. They did not fly it, unfortunately, but like the little routers were spinning and he looked very fun. So this was a non-car at the conference. And they said they've gotten like 200 hours of flight time out of this thing, which I was like, bro, like, how do you fly that? Like, where does it go? I have a lot of questions. They couldn't tell me how it charged or how fast it charged, which I was disappointed about because that's what I care about, but here we are. It looks very, very cool. This is the EQS. This is Mercedes, one of Mercedes' new offerings. They're not available here, but there was like a whole host of them over there. So maybe someday soon we'll see them here. The EQS is a very nice car, but alas, it's not here. EVS had a bunch of ride and drives, so I drove a lot of cars. They would not let me drive the police car. I did not ask, I was a little bit afraid, but there he is. This is actually a Daimler vehicle or Mercedes vehicle. And actually his plug, which I did not put the picture there, is actually like in the front underneath the light. Yeah, the headlight, which I think is a weird place for a charge port, but I guess if that works for the police, then there you go. And this was like a whole van, which was kind of fun to see that vehicle class electrified. This is a fun little picture that Circle K actually like uses charging infrastructure, which I thought was weird because I don't think they do charging infrastructure over here. But to do a bunch of ride and drives, you obviously have to charge these vehicles. So you can see the two Taycans, the Porsches, and then one of the Xpengs just chilling here and charging. And I just thought it was very cute that they had, you know, kind of set up a whole kind of infrastructure to charge the vehicles, but, you know, they were still on display as they were charging because, I mean, they're beautiful, and why not display them in all their glory, you know, just sucking up kilowatts of power, just like the good stuff. So in a different way of sucking up power, I also got to see Momentum's wireless charging in the light duty sector, which is incredibly interesting because wireless charging, for me, I associate with buses, and it's still kind of taking off in the bus space and the heavy duty space. So it's very interesting to see it literally right there, that little blue square is wireless charging. So you stick that dongle in the ground and you stick a dongle on the car. In this case, it was the lovely Jaguar I-Pace. And they just talked to each other. And I think he was charging at like, I have to look at the other picture. I think it was like 50 kilowatt, no, 20-ish kilowatts, which is not bad. And primarily they're used for kind of in taxi purposes here. So these would in theory be like little taxi lanes where they just kind of chill and wait for customers. So it makes it a lot easier if they can just like sit and park and just charge and then go as needed. So that's what that looks like. We don't have a lot of those here, so it's kind of fun to look at. This is just like a regular charging vehicle, but what's interesting is that you're supposed to, you bring your own cord. So it comes with this little port, and then it's just like a J1772 plug on either end, and you plug one in to the ground and one into the car to charge, which is obviously different than here because, you know, the level 2 charging has the cord built in generally, like 99% of the time. So I just thought that was interesting. Also, this parking lot has like green ground, you know, that ground with the grass that grows out of the bottom, which I just thought was kind of fun. This is, I'm trying to remember, oh no, it's a surprise. Every time I click the button, I'm like, what's coming? Who could say? I don't know. This is like a car sharing kind of structure here. So they've got solar panels, which is beautiful. And they also had some cars as kind of a car rental program. So these are the ID4s, which we have here in the US. They had a bunch of ID3s, but I didn't get to catch any of them. Well, I don't think there's any in this presentation. But what's interesting is this little white van here. Yes. And this is actually the NV200, 2000. There's a 2 involved. The Nissan, which I do not believe ever made it to the States. I don't remember, don't quote me on that. But if it did make it, there's not very many of them. And I believe they're actually discontinued. So that was kind of interesting to see him in the wild and in kind of a car share program. If you speak Norwegian, which I do not, this is kind of the process about how to get it. You know, you just kind of download the app and kind of borrow the car, and then at some point return it. But I mean, it's a cargo van. So I just thought that was I'm very curious to see how how frequently that was rented in comparison to some of the other vehicles, the vehicle classes as well. So, you know, is this van more popular than, you know, the ID4, the Volkswagen, or, you know, kind of how it compares in like popularity. But I just like that they had that offering as well, because I hadn't seen it before. So for me, it was just like a fantastic new vehicle to like touch. I got to touch it. I don't think they wanted me to touch it, but I did it anyway. So here we are. These are some pictures actually of vehicles at the airport. So I've never heard of either of these brands. I think I've heard of Cupra. I don't know. I've never heard of either of these vans, but I just thought that was kind of wild that they were advertising them at the airport. And they were just like full on vehicles, just like chilling. I'm like putting on my, like getting up my laptop and like putting it back in my bag, and there's just like a car there. And I'm like, wow, I love cars. Like the airport, it's so fun. So just, you know, I don't know, I've never seen a car at the airport. So just think about it. Weird stuff you see in Europe. This car came all the way from California, because you see his cute little HOV sticker. I showed this to a friend who told me that the Fiat 500Es actually did not sell in Europe. So I have a lot of questions for whoever brought this car here, because that was very obviously imported. And so the import fees, and just that whole enchilada of trying to deal with that, like shipping a car across the world, like I have questions for this vehicle. But he's super cute, and I love that he was in existence in Norway, because then I got to look at him, which is very fun. So kind of moving away from cars, I want to talk a little bit about boats, which is kind of a fun new thing that we don't really have here, because we're in Sacramento and there aren't any boats. Well, the port, but you know, I don't have a boat, so sorry. This orange tower thingamajig actually is a 4 megawatt charger. Like 4, like Ash was talking about megawatts for like one semi, like this is 4. Like this is insane. Like this is beautiful. This big orange thing like comes down and hooks into the thing, and just like he goes. And then this other one that looks kind of like a tail. I think it looks like a tail. Each one of them is a megawatt. So this whole thing can draw 2 megawatts of power in one go. Like that's just an outrageous amount of power. And this is all, like you see the little hashtag thing. This is all by the transit agency, all by the transit agency isn't the right word in this situation, but you know, all by the transit authority. Like they're purchasing and running these buses or vehicles or boats. But it's just like so freaking cool, man. Like, and they don't even have to charge every time. Like, I don't know what their pack size is. They didn't tell me, but like, they just go back and forth. Like, fantastic. Like, look at him. He's so cute. He's in action. Look at him going. I really like them. They're so cool. These other pictures, so we, my friend and I didn't go on the Rooter boat, but we went on another electric boat. It was actually a PHEV, which is a different story altogether. But I wanted to show that like there's the fjord, like there's the water. We touched it. It was so fun. And they're actually like jellyfish in this water, which was a shock to both of us. Like I just didn't feel like jellyfish lived this close to like the continent. So just fun little pictures of some jellyfish, because this is my presentation, so I can show you what I want to show you. Ha ha ha. And this is the boat we were on. And this is it like connecting to shore power. So you can see this ginormous plug and this ginormous shore power plug. I don't know if there's an SAE standard for that. I'm sorry, Ash, maybe you know, but I don't think there is one. He's just kind of plugging in and just like living his best life, which is very, very cool. They're not good pictures, but like personally for me, I took like a picture of the cord snaking into the vehicle or the boat, and all the boat people were like, why are you asking about my electric? I had all these questions about the boat and they couldn't tell me any answers, except that it's very cool. So anyway, there's a boat. We got on the boat. So that was it right there. That's my lovely picture right here. It's really windy on a boat. I don't know if you knew this. This was news to me. It's very windy. So they were like some really great pictures. But this is the boat, and it's a catamaran, I think is the style, because it's got the tunnel in it, which makes it a special type of boat. Sorry, I get excited. So I don't know what type of boat this was, but he's one of like the first ones ever. And it's very sleek and very cool. And I highly recommend it. And that's kind of it. So I just want to say also, so like I got to see a lot of my coworkers that I actually hadn't met in person before, which I just think is kind of fun, that it took like all of us getting like our papers and our work acknowledged at this conference to go to Norway to meet in person, which I think is kind of fun. And then I also got to see the Scream. So I was screaming with it. And this was my other friend when we were on the boat together, and I had to get the Norwegian flag in because like we were in Norway. So that's it. Happy to talk or, not talk, as the case may be, because it's just very fun and I had a very good time. And because it was all electric vehicle related, I figured I should share with y'all because I just think other people appreciate it. And I have over like 600 pictures. So these were just like the cream of the crop. So just keep that in mind. I could have went on for decades. So anyway, happy to chat more or not, as you want.
Thank you, Katrina. I love your presentations. They're like a roller coaster. You don't know where they're going to go, but you're going to end up screaming. I just know it. Right?
They're very fun. And you never,
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going. Like, who knows? I don't practice this. This is just coming out of my mouth. So
Wow. It looks like, of course, these were things, it looks like Europe has just bounded ahead of the US in terms of EV stuff. So,
yeah, they have a lot of funding and a lot of creativity, but also everything is just a little bit closer together. So we're really dealing with, going up and down the state, but like a lot of countries are smaller than our state. So it's kind of an interesting conundrum.
Plus they have a pretty large, diverse portfolio as well. So solar, wind, and geothermal and everything. So I think on top of their huge infrastructure, they got a lot of supply.
wow. John just asked, what's the percentage of EVs in Norway? I think it's pretty high though, right?
Yeah, it's about 20 to 30, I believe is what I was told. And it's higher in Oslo. So like everybody always says like every other car is an electric vehicle. And I was like, that's an exaggeration. Like there's no way. And like every other car was an electric vehicle. And every third car was one we don't have in the US. So I was like overwhelmed. Like, I don't know this car. Like I got to look at it. We had a lot of ID3s, which I'd never seen before because we don't get those in the States. So the ID4 is obviously the SUV. And the ID3 is like a smaller little hatchback guy. He's incredibly cute. I would purchase him. Unfortunately, the state or the country does not let him in. So I have to suffer, but he's very cute.
Wow. Okay. Questions? Cars you want to drive?
I did drive a lot of cars, which I don't know if I said. I got to drive the Xpeng, the MG, the Neo. We could talk about the Neo. That one's fun. So we were talking about battery swapping. Neo does battery swapping just within their own vehicles, which was kind of interesting. Battery swapping is really big in China, which is where Neo is based. And they're setting up some battery swapping in Norway. And I was trying to get the pricing and like more details out of him. He was a salesman, and obviously English was not his first language, so I was too excited to kind of get a straight answer. But I think what they were doing is they were doing 2 to 3 free battery swaps a month, and then I think it was up to like 200 kilowatt hours of free power a month, which just seems like an outrageous amount. I don't think you need that much. But what the guy was saying is they actually people don't charge at home. Instead, they just swap the battery when it gets low, which was not something I had expected anybody to do. So that's just kind of a different use case, I would say, than what I was expecting to hear. So kind of fun fact.
Wow. Any other questions? So I'll ask you, the flying car. Who made the flying car? Who was that?
Yeah, that was Xpeng, I believe.
Yeah.
And they're kind of they look fancy, they look snazzy. What I didn't capture is one of their cars, the door kind of goes up kind of funny, which looks very sports car. So it looks cool. I think I got to drive their SUV, but they had like a faster one, but the line was too long for that, so I didn't want to wait in the line. But like those suckers go. Like they just handed me a car. Like I'd never driven in Norway before. They're like, oh, here, you're fine. You got a driver's license. I was like, bro, like the streets are different here. I took a roundabout. Like there are so many roundabouts, but like, so
At
fun.
least they drive on the right-hand side of the street though.
Oh yeah. No, I would not
good.
drive on the other side.
Yeah.
I would not be good.
That's good.
Katrina, you mentioned this is going to be in Sacramento next year.
Yes.
Do you know the dates?
It's usually about the same time in early summer, so
Okay.
June-ish is kind of the expected one. And I know that some people, or not people, some entities in the area, I believe, are kind of trying to create some other events for people who attend. Just because, you know, if you're in Sacramento, you might as well do something. So like I went on a tour in Norway about their transit center. And so, you know, maybe SAC-RT will do something as well to kind of promote what we've been doing in the area and stuff like that. So yeah, and in Sacramento, it's supposed to be coming, and it's significantly more local. And I recommend it if you have the opportunity.
Wow. Okay. I think I read somewhere that Norway, like 50% of the cars were EVs. This is in 2021, I think, that were sold. I think it might have even been higher than that. They've just gone crazy on EVs. Okay. With that, thanks, Katrina. That was wild. I love the pictures.
I have much more pictures. If you guys ever want any more random car pictures, I have many pictures.
Very good. Yeah, that'll be another meeting. It's good. Okay. Last thing is question and answers, and Robert Thayer asked a question in the chat. I thought I'd go to him first. Robert, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi everyone. And you know, I'm wondering, you guys can tell me, you know, I feel like, well, first of all, I'm the auto shop teacher at Davis High School, and I feel like this group would benefit from just being aware of the electric vehicle, you know, training program that we have at the high school. Because knowing about your organization definitely is valuable to me as an instructor. I will say that. So it might be good to exchange, you know, the information kind of going the other way from what we're doing and what's going on over there. So I'm wondering if maybe, you know, you guys could give me just maybe, you know, 10 minutes or so at a future meeting, you know, just to kind of explain to you what we're doing over at the high school. Because it's not so much of a question as more of a interest in kind of becoming a larger community and even more of a bigger partnership, to be honest with you.
That'd be great, Robert. That'd be great.
Yeah, Robert, that's exciting to hear. I'm actually so on top of a business that I have in Dixon that's EV conversions and stuff. I'd be more than happy to invite you guys over when everything's set up, but anything I can do to help, because I'm actually doing a lot of training and stuff with clean cities. And in fact, my role at EPRI now is going to be doing a lot more fire safety. I've been doing a lot of high voltage training with Davis, also UC Davis, you know, and their new formula teams and such. So more than happy to help you guys on that end of things too, but also take a look at what you guys have. I'm always enthusiastic about the high schools, because that's a new market that I've been working with the CMC, the California Mobility Center, with also doing the K through 12, as well as vocational schools and some of the university level training as well. So lot of ground to forge, but glad to see that you guys have already started that, and be more than happy to help.
Exactly.
So y'all have your people call my people.
Yeah, well, I just put my email in the chat.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from you. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that I could share with you guys, you know, both historical things in the past like 10 years or so, and then also, you know, the present and the future. So you guys meet once a month, is that correct?
Once every other month.
Every other month. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so the next one would be in October.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would be honored, you know, to have a little bit of time to share with you everything that's going on. I think you guys would be really excited, to be really honest with you. We're actually bursting at the seams with EV training right now. So, and then I would love to hear from anybody individually about you know, if you want to, you know, try to, you know, connect with me, you know, individually. My email is there. I know I have a lot of contacts in the EV education world. You know, I think I'm on probably a lot of the same email lists that you guys are on. And so, I look forward to being at your next meeting and getting some time and, to kind of devote to what's going on there at the DHS Auto Shop. And then, I can see somebody actually has a really pertinent question. So I'm going to kind of, give up the floor here. And I have not, I put in a deposit on a 2022 Ioniq at Roseville Hyundai, and we're just waiting. We're waiting. They don't have the car. We requested a specific, one with a few specific specs. So we're waiting. I don't have the car yet, but I'd love to pick your guys' brain on that car. But I think you guys should hear from Nikki right now. I think that'd be good. But it was nice meeting all of you, and I really enjoyed all the presentation.
All right, thanks, Robert. And tell you what, you sent your email, so I'll send you a note back, just kind of touch base, and then we'll keep in touch before that October meeting.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, right. And I'm glad you're doing this. When you first talked, you were at the auto shop in Davis High School. I was going to say, when are you going to go from ICE to EVs? So it's great to hear you guys are so far ahead. Thinking ahead. Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. So Nikki asked a question. Nikki, would you like to?
Yeah. So I don't want to, take up too much of everybody's time, but I'm really, pretty new to all of this. I have a 2013 Prius that I'm perfectly happy with, except that I've decided that I want something that's safer. Actually, safety is actually my main concern. And then also with the incentives, it seems like it's a good time for the first time in my life, to buy a new car. I've always bought used cars because when I took my auto mechanics class, I was told that the car loses $3,000 in value when you drive it off the lot. So that inspired me to buy used cars. But it seems like this is a good time to actually be thinking about a new car. So I did put a deposit down on a Subaru, a Crosstrek, mostly actually because I was so appalled that the RAV4 had a 2-year waiting list for the plug-in hybrid. But now actually, just for, I did it the first day the 2023s opened for sale, but the salesperson really wasn't very knowledgeable and gave me some incorrect information, which is kind of causing me to rethink, and maybe kind of think about looking at other cars also. So I just wanted to know, is there anybody who, what's a good way to get just basic car comparison information?
Well, this is Peter. Plug-in America. If you go on their website, I think they have a EV comparison flyer. It's 4 pages, and you can compare the different vehicles. So if you're interested in plug-in hybrids, they have a page on plug-in hybrids, and then there's full electrics, 2 pages of full electrics. And
okay, so it's Plug-in America. That's so just Google Plug-in America.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's like PIA.org or something like that.
Okay, and then I actually am wondering, whether, just actually what the advantages of a plug-in hybrid over a hybrid, if I drive on the highway, because once you actually drive on the highway, then you're not going to be, I guess it depends on how much of your driving is on the highway, right?
Yes. Yes. So the advantage of the plug-in is most of the time, because you're not always going to drive on the highway, right? And even if you do drive on the highway, the first, X number of miles will be all electric. And then after that, it'll be the same as a hybrid. So no matter what, you will always save money with a plug-in hybrid as far as on fuel. But you do have the upfront cost. It's a little more expensive than the hybrid.
Yeah, I guess I was really surprised comparing the Crosstrek to the hybrid that the Prius that I already have. So the Prius, the 2013 Prius gets 43 or 44 miles to the gallon. The plug-in Subaru hybrid, I think if it's driving in its hybrid mode, its miles per gallon is quite a bit lower than that, I think.
Yeah, it's all-wheel drive though. And you pay a price for all-wheel drive.
Oh.
a significant price. Because we've had ICE cars that were like a minivan, for example, that was all-wheel drive, and typically those will get 20 miles to the gallon, and we got 14. So you're schlepping around all that extra weight, and you're using the engine to turn all that extra mass all the time. So every time you accelerate, you got to accelerate a drive shaft and an extra differential, and
I see.
so
Okay.
you always get worse mileage,
Okay.
unless it's an EV all-wheel drive.
Yeah, the real benefit of plugins, are more for city drivers because you just have that extra battery, capacity to support the electric side. And yeah, on the freeway side, they didn't really do much to downsize the motor to compensate for the extra, battery that you'll be getting. So you're ultimately just carrying more weight, to accommodate for that. So your freeway mileage may not differ as much, but will still be, a little bit smaller than it would be in the traditional regular hybrid. But yeah, the only benefit of the plug-in really is on the city side, when you'll see most of that benefit, the additional battery capacity.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I will look at that website, the Plug in America website.
Okay, yeah, because there's a lot of plug-in hybrids there. Most of them, unfortunately, are fairly low electric range. I tossed the RAV4 Prime into the chat for you, but yeah, I understand if there's a wait list.
Yeah, I mean, because actually that's the other thing I'm wondering. So the wait list for a plug-in RAV4 is 2 years, but the wait list for a regular hybrid RAV4 is 4 months, 4 or 5 months. Okay. So, I mean, 2 years is almost pretty much impossible, because at this point, I mean, if it's 2 years, it could end up being 4 years.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, and it's funny because a year ago we were looking at a RAV4 Prime and they had them on the lots. So it's amazing how quickly things change.
$20,000 markup, I'm sure.
Well, when we were looking, no, but probably now, yes.
Yeah.
And Nikki, be sure to come to the Drive Electric Week event. Everyone will be very happy to talk to you.
Okay, sorry, what is that event? What is that? I missed the first few minutes of the meeting of the announcement.
Oh, okay, yeah, the Drive Electric event in Davis.
It's September 25th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're doing in September there's like a National Drive Electric Week. We're kind of nationally, obviously, a lot of car clubs kind of put on electric vehicle events. And so in Davis, we're having one on the 25th, I believe, of September.
Okay.
And so we're hoping to kind of work with dealers to get ride and drives out so they can talk specifics about their vehicles, and then also have drivers, like most of us here, bring their cars out and kind of get the user experience about cars as well. And so, happy to talk more and also just so you can look at a car too. So you're like, oh, well, I've never even seen I have a Volt. You've never seen a Volt in person, or, a Prius Prime, or, Rev Prime, whatever you're looking at. We'll have like a lot of variety out there, so you can see if it fits with what you're looking for.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great. I can tell you, I mean, I don't know if any of you has been, well, none of you are newbies like I am, but the thing is, I can tell you that, I mean, you can't see these cars, and I've called every dealer around. They're just not there. So, and even if they get one in that somebody's going to buy in 3 days, they might let you look at it, but they won't let you touch it, so and I was even trying to figure out color. You can't even look at the color of a car. There's just nothing, you pretty much have to buy it sight unseen, which is why I got in line, the day that the 2023 Subarus opened. But even then, they didn't even have accurate color information. So it's kind of been,
yeah, it's kind of the Wild West right now, because, trying to get batteries is incredibly difficult. And, a 2-year wait, I think is what you said, seems ridiculous, honestly. At that point, if it's like no commitment, I would just put your name down anyway. I know some people who have like my friend got the ID4 like probably a year ahead of time because somebody backed out of the lease agreement, and so the dealership was actually kind of frantically looking for somebody to buy this vehicle off the lot. That was a year probably ago at this point, so things have obviously changed, but you never know what happens. We could just find an influx of batteries just appear somewhere, and then you've got a car. But I would say, if there's no if it's whatever the word is, if it's not a high stress activity, then why not Doesn't hurt.
Okay, good thought. Thank you.
I mean, you can also check some of the used markets too. I know buying a new car is like kind of fun, but also incredibly stressful.
Well, I actually don't want to do, I mean, actually, I guess maybe I might even have incorrect information about this, but my reasoning actually was that I would get that there were the incentives, the financial incentives, but I didn't think that you got those on a used car.
That's
Yeah, so
true.
I mean, yeah, we just kind of learned, right? So Sierra had kind of talked about Valley Clean Energy. Peter talked briefly maybe about a used vehicle incentive coming from the federal government. But I will say a lot of times, in the used market, oftentimes that original $7,500 tax break or what have you, they often lower the price kind of in comparison because of that. So it's already kind of, I don't know the right word, kind of like depreciated with that cost in mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I don't know for every situation, but that's often what I've heard.
Oh, interesting. Okay, sorry about that.
The
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the other thing though is that those used car incentives, they're typically for lower income. So if your income is fairly decent, then you may not qualify.
Right. That is my situation. I mean, I'm fortunate to have a good income.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks for coming, Nikki. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're happy to answer any more questions. And definitely we stole your email for you to like join us. So you will be getting some more emails about the event on the 25th, next 25th. So, feel free to come on out. Like, we are, not selling you anything, which I have a hard time with dealing with the dealerships. We're just like people talking about cars. So that situation is often different. And like you experience, like we do know more about cars than the dealership often does.
It's crazy. I mean, and actually some of the things that matter to me, like for example, the hatchback, I'm pretty short. And so it turns out, so I thought, well, if it's an electric hatchback, it doesn't matter that you're short. And of course, the dealer told me that the Subaru Crosstrek had an electric hatchback, which turns out to not be true. So it just, it's like all of it is kind of the Wild West.
Yeah, they're trying to make a sale, whereas we're just kind of talking about cars. And I think eventually will lead to a sale just because education is the best way to do it. But obviously to each their own.
Yeah, Subaru does have a Solterra, but it's not quite out yet, right, Katrina?
Yeah, there's an all-electric Solterra that's coming by the end of the year, hopefully. But that's all electric, which is just, a different game that if you're interested in playing.
Yeah, I think I really don't want an all electric because I drive a lot between here and Grass Valley, and I don't want to be, trying to figure out how to, I think I just don't feel comfortable doing all electric.
Okay.
I respect your decision, but honestly, you might be okay.
That probably
totally, like
it probably won't be a problem.
No.
Because from Davis to Grass Valley is what, about 60 miles maybe?
It's probably about 70 or, well, it's up, there's some uphill, so I don't know what that
is. But remember, you're coming back, so you'll get that uphill deficit back when you come down the hill.
Well, how long does the charge on those last? I mean, because I can charge it once I'm in Grass Valley.
So a lot of the cars right now have about 250 to 300 mile range. And depending on how you plug it in, you can probably plug it in overnight and be fine. You actually probably wouldn't need to charge in Grass Valley, but if that's your comfort level, then obviously you're more than welcome to just plug it straight into an outlet, or there's a few apps that you can use to find chargers. And a lot of times new cars now kind of come with some free charging associated if you find the right charging station.
Oh, well, that's interesting. That's because I hadn't thought that was really actually a workable option. So, I mean, because basically the thing that I do want something that's safe, so I want all the modern cars, bells and whistles as far as safety goes. Are the waiting lists shorter on the electric cars?
Nikki, I have a Kona, a Hyundai Kona EV, and I get in the summertime, I charge to 325 miles.
Oh my God.
On 100% charge. Now I don't drive at 325 miles, but I have no problem driving up to Lake Tahoe, tooling around, catching a charge for an hour, and then driving all the way back to Davis. It's
Well,
nothing.
and I'm actually less adventurous than that. I just do a lot of driving between here and Grass Valley or between Davis and the Bay Area.
You wouldn't have, in my opinion, I had the same kind of little bit of distress worrying about that, but boy, I'll tell you, I don't have any problems. And I bought 3 years ago, and there are probably 3 times more chargers now than there were 3 years ago.
There's a DC fast charger in Grass Valley.
Really? How fast does a fast charger charge your car?
I'm not, well, I think that's a charge point, 50 kilowatt.
50 kilowatt.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you'd probably be getting what, 100 miles of range in half an hour or something.
Yeah.
More than that probably. So you wouldn't need to be there very long to be able to make it back.
That's
if
just
you were
kind of
short.
like topping off, but actually it's not, I can charge, I mean, as long as you can just use a regular outlet or something, I can charge at both locations in Grass Valley. So that's not a problem.
A regular 110 is going to be very, very slow. It's almost pointless. So,
No, it's not pointless.
well,
I think
no,
it's
if
fine.
you're just going to try and top off while you're up there for the day, you're going to be there for a long time.
Well, if you're just topping off, but it's
Well, but-
obviously.
No,
it
I mean, I said, no, I mean, because I'm there overnight. So I mean, if I
Oh,
go,
Well, that's
Yeah.
different.
yeah,
you-
so I mean, I'm over there, I'm there for overnight. So I just plug it in, leave it overnight. And then,
Right.
but if I did want to top off, then I don't mind sitting around for a half hour while something charges.
Yeah, and
you'd-
again, you don't have to leave 100% full. Like you
No.
go downhill from Grass Valley, so
Yeah.
you actually gain energy back. If you've driven
Right.
your Prius, you kind
Right.
of know that gain. You're sitting in traffic and the car is off. You're driving like 5 or 10 miles an hour, and you're able to stay on all electric. But with an all electric car, it's obviously all electric, and you have a bigger battery pack to regen, and all the fun that comes with that.
So I haven't looked at all electrics at all. So I mean, what kind? So I guess, that's interesting.
Yeah, so
Well,
that website.
What
Has-
do you
has it
want?
all.
There's pretty much anything.
Really?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the bolts and the Konas are probably at the bottom, in terms of price. But I love my Kona. I did have to have the traction battery replaced, but it was just did it so quickly. It was no big.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very happy with, well, I like Toyotas. It's sort of all reliable cars. I like all the reliable cars. And I like cars that can be maintained at Hoffman, because I like Hoffman. But I mean, I guess there's probably a lot of options there.
Well, you can just drive to Vacaville and have your Hyundai done. It's 15 miles. So
Uh-huh. But I think Hoffman probably can take care of everything. I mean, you don't have to go to a special place for electric, do you? Or do you?
well, if you're buying a new car, you want to go to a place that will do warranty work for you, while you're
Uh-huh.
still.
So
No.
electric cars don't have a lot of work to be done with them,
Yeah.
especially at the beginning stages like this. And and there's a lot of warranties in place, which is why Larry was talking about definitely go back to the dealership.
Mhm.
Because to sell electric vehicles in California, you do have to the car companies are mandated to have a certain warranty on the batteries and on I think it's the electric drivetrain as well. And obviously that you should go to the dealer for because that's
Right,
high
right.
voltage power to
Ye-
maintain the warranty.
Yeah, but to be clear, you don't have to go to the dealer you bought the car from. You just have
Right.
to go to the dealer that is the
Yeah.
same manufacturer.
Mhm.
And you can look
Yeah.
out the area. I bought my car up in near Chico and got it for MSRP, and I couldn't touch it down here for anything less than 5,000 over MSRP.
Oh,
So
yeah, that's,
I drove up there and got it in up in Chico. It was done.
oh, that's,
So,
interesting.
own
Yeah.
price.
Yeah, I mean, well, because I mean, the Auburn dealerships aren't marking above the MSRP, so that's nice.
Right.
The
That's
ones that I talked to.
anyway.
All right, well, that's lots of information. Thank you for your patience with all of my beginner questions.
No,
Nope.
of course, that's what we're here for. And
That's
so,
fine.
and that's
Come-
kind of getting the experience from everybody too.
Mhm.
Come to the thing on the 25th at Central Park, and
Okay.
you'll see a lot of cars, and you can talk till you're exhausted to people, and we'll
Mhm.
talk.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I
we'll all
really
be
do
there.
like my Prius. I mean, so the Prius is great. So I'm pretty, familiar and comfortable with my Prius.
Yeah, and there's the Prius Prime as well, which is, you know, just a Prius with about 25 or so miles of electricity involved.
Yeah, it's the thing. I just want a safer car. I mean,
Mhm.
that's really the issue. So I think the Prius Prime is probably, I'm assuming that's just about the same size as a Prius.
Yeah, and I think we'll
Yeah.
we'll probably end up having one out there too. I don't know, I haven't looked at the list and we haven't done any really recruiting for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a Prius Prime out there as well that you can, you know, touch and talk to the person who owns it and, you know,
Yeah.
conversate as you will.
The thing with the Prius Prime is it's essentially the same as the Crosstrek. The mileage, the range is pretty small. I don't know if it qualifies for any rebates. Maybe it does because it's a little bit bigger battery, but not much.
Yeah, I think what I found with the Crosstrek, I think what they're saying, I think it qualifies for the federal rebates and the HOV lane, although I don't feel really confident that I got straight answers, but it doesn't qualify for the California rebates, I think that's what it is. I mean, it's really frustrating because I don't feel confident in the information that I'm getting.
Yeah, and I think like we had talked about earlier, like the information changes so frequently and everything is kind of not quite person to person specific, but fairly individuals have fairly specific needs because it is, you know, income and zip code often and
Mhm.
utility, as we heard from Sierra. And like, you know, for example, Valley Clean Energy is, you know, all of Yolo County except for West Sac, which is where I live. So none of these fantastic things apply to me. So, you know, there's just kind of not weird, but, you know, kind of one-off things that jumping into this
Mhm.
space does take a little bit of Googling and a little bit of research. So you're definitely doing it right, to be, you know, open-minded and kind of looking at all the
Mhm.
options available, but it is a little bit tough.
Yeah, especially the fact that you can't see them. I mean, you just they're being, I guess they're being snapped up the minute they arrive at the lot.
Yeah. I mean, we had the same problem with our car. We had put a deposit on it. It was refundable, but we still had to wait. And this was a year ago. We still had to wait 2 months for it to show up. But we did, you know, obviously we got to see it and then test drive it before we actually signed the
Mhm.
purchase. So, and we had actually driven a gas version of the same car before, so we knew that, you know, the seating was going to work and that the interior was what we wanted and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
well,
I definitely encourage you to come out. We'll be sending some more emails kind of after this. We are like crazy over time. I think we're supposed to end at 7. So
Oh, yeah.
I do want to make sure that everybody, I'm gonna go jump in the pool because I'm like incredibly hot.
I do have
'cause
one last
but
thing,
you know, if
Katrina.
anybody, feel free,
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah, really quick. I was looking at that. We were talking about the IRA at the very beginning. It looks like there's a little sort of get out of jail free card. It's when it says as far as battery composition and that sort of thing, it says extracted or processed in the US or a US free trade partner or recycled in North America. So there's other ways. I mean, it's not like if it's not you know, material doesn't come from North America or comes from the US, that it's not going to qualify. There's possibilities of getting it from other places, but it could be a little tricky. So just
Yeah, that's interesting. And then the free trade partner thing can change too. So you never know,
Yes.
like looking
Yes.
in the future.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure nobody else has any other questions before we get back to our lovely evenings. It's like hot. I'm like sweating. But otherwise,
I'm done. I'll let everybody
you're
go.
good.
I'm not
You're
going to keep
good,
talking.
Peter. Otherwise, yeah, thanks everybody for coming out. We'll be doing some more emails, I'm sure. And you know, talk to you guys all later. Thanks for hanging out this evening. So bye,
All right.
guys.
Okay,
Thanks very
bye.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye.